Now I fish a lot of grasshopper patterns in terrestrial season, but really there's only about 4 patterns that I find myself going to. One of them is a little foam body, squirrel wing, deer hair head pattern. Another one's a Chernobyl ant. That thing's pretty much a hopper. And another one is a Madam X. I fish that thing as a hopper too. But I do have one more hopper pattern that I fish a lot. I've never tied it for the channel, never even talked about it here. So let's talk about how this one came about. I was fishing on the Gunpowder River here in Maryland a couple of seasons ago. Now I can't remember if I was getting skunked on regular dry flies, but it's quite possible I was. Now it's late September, and I specifically remember that because it was kind of late in the season for hoppers. I didn't even have my terrestrial box with me, but I saw a lot of them hopping around in the bushes on the trail. And I do have a couple of hopper imitations in my general all-purpose box. I think there were some pink and purple, just big foam body monstrosities. So I tie one of these on, and it does get some interest. I see some fish coming up to it, taking a look, and either rejecting it at the last minute, and some of them were what I thought were splashy rises to it, but turns out they were probably just playing around with the fly, because every time I'd see one, I'd try to set the hook and I'd just be pulling my clean fly out of the water. So these patterns were definitely getting some interest, but didn't catch a single fish. So then I had an idea. Why don't I just go catch some of these hoppers on the trail and tie something that looks exactly like them? Well, it turns out that's a lot harder than it sounds, but I did go grab a bunch of them and take some pictures. So the next time I'm back at my bench, I can try and tie something that looks exactly like this thing. And at first, I did try the semi-realistic route, but that turned out to be a bust. The flies just took way too long to tie. They didn't look all that realistic, and they really didn't even float. So back to the drawing board and back to a foam body. And I did tie several variations with this. I tied some of them with wings, some of them with a little bit of flash, tried some of them with knotted legs. But then I tied one simple variation, just no wing, no flash, straight legs. And by now it's wintertime, terrestrial season is long over, so these just go into my box for the next year. So the next spring, the first time I'm fishing terrestrials, it turns out this simple little pattern, no wing, no flash, straight legs, outperforms them all. Of course, I'm thinking this could have been a fluke, so I keep trying it all summer, and it keeps doing well for me. I end up catching my personal best wild brown trout on the gunpowder on this thing, probably about 16 inches, and it also does pretty well nearby Patuxent River for their stocked rainbows. So the moral of this story is, get out there and experiment. Just play around, have fun. We don't just have to match the hatch with aquatic bugs, you can try and match terrestrials as well. And if you tie enough junk, eventually you'll find a pattern that works well. So that's how I came up with this super simple pattern that I call the Gunpowder Hopper. Let's give it a shot. So there it is in the vise, what I've been calling my Gunpowder Hopper. Very simple pattern. It's actually about the easiest grasshopper pattern I could think to make. And I tie these really on size 10, and that's about it. That's just the size they are around here. This is a 3x long generic curved shank hook. It's kind of my go-to terrestrial hook. And I'll put down a base of olive thread all the way to where the barb was. Now I do put a tail on this, and this is how this one differs from a lot of other patterns out there. One single brown goose biot. Just catch this in on the top. I don't think it matters if you have it flared up or down. If it's down, either way it's probably going to get down in the water. So just a couple of wraps there to secure that. Now we'll take this little piece I cut from the template there. And let's see, I'm going to catch this in. Just make sure your head is up there to the eye. So maybe just a little bit in front of that. And I do want a good bit of that tail to be sticking out from under the back part of this abdomen here. So let's take maybe 3 wraps right there, one under and one over, just to make sure it's not going to spin on us. Take your thread up a little bit, put some wax on it. And I like to use ice dub. And this is a peacock color. I think any color would probably be fine right here, but I'm trying to stick with the theme of this colored fly here. And I put it on pretty thick because I'm dubbing it up all the way up here, really to almost the eye. Okay, I think that's going to be fine right there. Now let's fold over this piece and then just catch this in right here. Now sometimes I would put a little bit more dubbing and go right up under that head, but I think it's just not necessary. I think we can go straight into our legs right here. And what I use for the legs, it's just this is called flutter legs, and it's a grizzly black olive by hairline, but I think anything in an olive or brown is going to work for this pattern, and I've done it with multiple different legs. But one trick here, I will catch it in on the bottom. I don't necessarily want it in between that foam or it will stick straight out. As it is, they're probably going to stick down, but I think that's fine. They end up going into the water. So that's the first one, and then this one right next to it, but you know, kind of also on the bottom here. Let's do a couple wraps and get them positioned. Don't worry about the lengths yet. We'll trim those in one of the last steps. So there we go. I think that's going to be just fine right there. A couple extra wraps. Now this step is going to be totally optional. Is a piece of white. And this is just for an indicator. This thing does float pretty well, but it doesn't float high. And I find that, you know, the older I get, the more I need something to help me see it. So I just put a little piece of this 1mm white foam. A little piece right there is going to work. Now let's get our whip finish in here. Now let's trim these legs to size. I want the back ones just about, you know, as long as the hook here really, and then the front ones significantly shorter. They're just kind of nubs sticking out up here. And there we go. And one other secret, I don't really put head cement on it. I guess if I did, I should just put a drop of super glue right there on those thread wraps. Don't even worry about it. I mean, yeah, sometimes the fly wears out on me, but they're pretty cheap and pretty easy, and I have tons of them. So that's it, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.